If this is the question, should we be doing this or something else? The alternative becomes, what's the something else? Then it becomes, are we doing this with the right perspective and hindsight in the present moment? And are we making these decisions based off of our values and what we want in the totality of our lives, and creating the frameworks to make the right decisions to chase what truly matters? And I think that there's not a right answer. I really believe that there's not. It's just a matter of, with enough hindsight, we'll probably get there.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Chasing Excellence. My name is Patrick Cummings. As always, I'm here with Ben Bergeron. Every week on the show, we dedicate some time to exploring how we can live a life of better health and increased fulfillment. We answer your questions about the 5 factors of health, dive deep on living a life of excellence, and explore the strategies and frameworks to help us chase what truly matters. Thank you so much for joining us. Hello, and how are you, Ben?
I'm doing good. Good to be here with you, Patrick.
Wonderful. We've got this episode, some listener questions about the best way to work on weaknesses in the gym, recognizing and combating the things that derail our good habits, and connecting more deeply with a significant other when they think things are fine as they are. Our workout this week is going to be answering another listener question about how to know if we're pushing our kids enough or if we're at risk of overscheduling them. And our cool down will be a Hopper Talk question about what we want our gravestones to read. I don't know if people put things on gravestones, but we're going to go with this question other than their name and when they died. So we're going to pretend that people do. We'll wrap the episode up with that. First thing first, our warm-up. We start each episode with your questions about the 5 factors of health, those few fundamental behaviors that most positively affect our performance, vitality, and longevity. Those 5 factors are how we eat, how we move, how we think, how we connect, and how we recover. First question, as it often is in our move category. This is from Tim. He says, given the innumerable weaknesses we all have, given the number of aspects of CrossFit that we need to be proficient in, is it better to focus on 2 or 3 specific things that you can add on before a session, like handstand push-ups or bar muscle-ups, deadlifts, etc., that you can focus on each week, or do cycles of one specific thing that you would train at least 3 times per week, like a deadlift for a 6-week block? You'll progress more in the deadlift by having a dedicated training block, but the marginal gains in 3 aspects outweigh the large gain in 1, given the many movements in CrossFit?
It really depends on 2 things. Are you a competitor or not? And then the magnitude of the deficiency. So if you are not a competitor, the answer is no. Just continue to go through concurrent training, meaning the exposure to all of the different things will eventually bring up the weak stuff without losing anything along the way, or without overtraining, or without any negative potential downsides. It's kind of like if you're not great at reading and you're going to school, should you triple down on the reading or just keep going to school and doing reading, math, history, everything else? Your reading's going to come up, and so will all the other stuff, instead of just like putting way more emphasis in the reading. Now, having said that, if you can't read, if the deficiency is so big and you need to take a test, right, which is essentially like you're going to be a competitor, then there's an area to kind of like double down on some deficiencies. And that's where it might make sense. So that's like the answer of like, should we even focus on weaknesses at all? And the answer is, if you have a test coming up, aka you're a competitor, and or the deficiency is so big that just so massively outweighs the other, that, an example would this be when we have really, really strong guys join our gym that can't run at all. Like they can back squat 480 pounds, they can deadlift 600 pounds, but they can't run 400 meters without stopping. In that case, if they want to compete, we put them on a little running program that they can do either before or after their training. If they don't want to compete anytime soon, then you don't need to. It's going to come up. It will come up. But when you put someone on an additional program, there's potential downsides as well. It's just there's different stress and magnitude of way, from psychological to physical. If then it becomes the question of like, should I focus on the singular thing or the multitude? Well, if you're focusing on the multitude, it's essentially what you're doing is you're doing 2 training sessions. That's really what it is. And yes, you're leaning a little more into the theories that you need, which you should do, and that's fine and dandy, and that's a good thing to do. And that's really the difference between whether I'm focusing on one or I'm focusing on a few others, because the few others is you're going to do it as an EMOM, or you got your other sets of these other things. it's essentially just a second piece of the training. There isn't a really clear-cut answer you can give across the board. Should I focus on one or should I focus on the others? Other than what is the magnitude of the deficiency? Because if you can't read when you go to school, like you should learn to read. And we might need to put a lot of extra focus on that. Or you're a phenomenal reader, but you don't have any addition and subtraction skills. Like we need to, this is why they kind of like have this extra work for people outside of school. It's the same thing. But if it's just a little bit down, like that's going to come up. Don't worry about it. And let's not over-index towards any of one of those things.
Next question is in our think category. It's from Matt. I was wondering if you or Ben have come across certain things or tasks that derail your routines and good habits. I struggle with depression, which comes and goes. One of the things that I neglect when depressed is washing my clothes. I let them pile up until I have no gym clothes left. This makes me super demotivated to train as I have nothing clean to wear to the gym, and not training makes me feel worse and on and on. Lately, I've been able to implement putting a small wash on every single morning, first thing when I wake up, even if it's only 4 to 5 pieces of clothes. And this has really helped me break through that problem. Do you yourselves have something similar, or have you heard of anything else like that?
Okay, so we could both answer this. Do we have things that potentially derail our good habits? So I'll answer that specifically. It's so funny. Whenever I say that word now, specifically, our kids say pacifically. So I'm like, I don't even know which one's right anymore. I'm like, did I say that? And we make fun of them for it, like, like in a clean way, but also mean way. So it like really becomes it's a weird word for me now.
We went to like a little fair up the road, and for some reason my son got in his head that we needed to buy not tokens, but toinkins.
Oh.
I don't know why. He's like, do we need more toinkins? And I was just like, yeah, we definitely need more toinkins.
And once you say it enough.
Michelle yelled at me like, no.
Yes.
But toinkins is such a better word than tokens.
It should be. Token is a good word, actually. I think token is a great word.
All right.
Okay. So here are the things that, I'll put out there, things that derail me. The first one is, so it's come right now. More so when the Patriots were really good, when they had a lot of night games, it would derail my sleep.
Yeah. So
I love watching football, and that would, Sunday nights, Monday nights derails my sleep for sure. And I try to live a very disciplined and very structured life where we're in bed at certain times, but I'll find myself staying up, an hour and a half or 2 hours past my bedtime during that time. And then it happens every now and then in the spring as well, maybe the Bruins or the Celtics, but those games seem to end a little bit sooner. So it's not as big a deal as the 12:30 p.m. Eastern time finishes of these games. So that's one that derails me. Another one that derails me off my good habits is summertime and alcohol. Alcohol is a poison. It's a toxin that you can't get two ways around it. That's what it is. We can have all the discussions we want about blue zones and the resveratrol and that it's in wine. Alcohol is a toxin. Full stop, period. I know that, but even during the summer, so I was meeting with a functional medicine person, and I was telling Heather about this, and my liver enzymes were a little bit off. And he was like, "Do you drink alcohol?" And I was like, "Well, yes, now more than summer than I normally do." And he's like, "How much?" And I told him the truth. And Heather's like, "You did what? No one tells the truth to their doctor. Everyone like, you're going to mess this up for everybody. Like, what are you doing?" And when I said the truth out loud, it actually kind of scared me a little bit, which is the truth during the summer, especially, we talked about this recently, how much time I spent on the Cape, and we spent a lot of time on boats and on the water and with friends and socializing. It was essentially a vacation. So like, this is the equivalent of like when people go to like, the all-inclusive, and like they definitely, I know I'm one, the habits change. And my habit changed this summer where I would have, 3 drinks on the boat during the day, like 4 days a week. And for me, that's a lot. Like, right now where we are right now, I haven't drank in probably 20 days, and in the winter, there's times that I'll go a month and a half without drinking. So that's something that definitely derails me for sure and I've talked to Heather about it, and we've kind of together been like, hey, we're not going to do that going forward. We can be social, we can hang with friends, we can do our thing, and we can go out, and even if it's the two of us by ourselves, we can go out and have a drink, but it shouldn't be the default. It shouldn't be every time we go to the beach, every time we go to the boat, this is what we do. And that was what last summer became a little bit. So what derails me? Summertime. And the last one is like, we've talked about this before, but like I have this love, hate relationship with caffeine. Like I love it. And it's work. What I found is because the summer, my caffeine consumption went way down. I'm outside. I'm with people. I'm moving. The sunlight gives me energy. I'm in nature. Like it's not even a thing that I want at all. But when I'm at work, the cognitive effect it gives me is I'm so focused and I can do such deep, good, meaningful work. And I know it. And it's a really powerful drug for me. And that's another thing that derails. So what derails me? Work. Like what derails me? Noon, like 11 a.m. And or like a big project I want to dive into. Like I want to go to the library and just like go zone for like 3 hours. Well, I know the difference if I go there with caffeine or whether I don't. Like it's such a cognitive enhancer for me. So, that's the three things that like I think really derail me the most is alcohol, late night sports, and caffeine, which are triggered by summer, the Patriots, and work. What about you? Because he asked both of us. What do you?
I think what I think about in terms of like what is something that really derails my routines. The thing that above all pales in comparison with anything else is quite frankly, if my wife and I have a fight, which thankfully does not happen very often, but life happens, I'm almost completely worthless. Yeah, you turn like I will come back out here into this office and I will sit and like I'll like hit the keyboard and like that's it. Like nothing useful until I go back inside and we resolve it, at least to the degree that it can be resolved at that moment. To me, again, there's nothing, and I would maybe expand it out a little bit to like, if I feel like I've disappointed or like not shown up for somebody who I really care about. And obviously my wife, Michelle, is like number one there. And so it happens more often with her. But quite frankly, like if it happened with you or if it happened with Gilson or my dad or anybody else who I felt like I really don't want to let this person down, or I really don't want to give less of myself than I have to offer. And I recognize like, I did that. That to me, again, it derails me until I can turn it around and say, okay, like the best I can, how can I solve this particular thing so that I can get back to feeling good, normal, energized, et cetera. And then I can kind of focus again and go through the day. But to me, there's nothing more that derails me or throws me off course from productivity to like getting out into the gym, to caring about what I eat, to going to bed on time. Like none of it pales in. Like all of those things are affected if something like that happens.
That's probably pretty closely related to what the listener was talking about as well. It was like kind of put you in a depressed state.
Yes, exactly.
And it makes total sense because what you do for a living is creative. And that's where you find value in your life. It's a huge part of what who you are. And when you think about like there's multiple states of mind that we can be in, but one is that alpha state, which is a flow state, which is a creative state. Well, the far end of that spectrum on the very opposite side is where you're in like a beta wave state, which is completely distracted. And that's where you are. So it's fragmented. And this is where your mind just, you can't, it's like, it's like it's everything, like it's the gazillion voices battling for reason, and there's nothing's coming out, and you can't. Whereas the flow state is like, it just comes. It's the amazing stuff, and that's why they say, focus is the gateway to flow. Because if you're in that distracted state, the best thing to do is, as you said, is to wait a minute. Let's go back in. Let's have a quote focused conversation. I need to solve this thing before I can get back to my normal, awesome Patrick self.
Exactly. All right. Last question we've got is from Peter. It's in our Connect bucket. He says, when listening to the episode with Cole Sager, he mentioned after the birth of his son that he was aware that he and his wife were missing their time on their walks and now drink coffee outside to keep it going. Over the past few months, I've noticed triggers and have started doing a much better job of being aware during situations. My wife and I have lost our connection. I have tried setting time aside during the day to work on finding it again. I make suggestions, but life, 2 kids, a job, housework all seem to take priority. How can you make others understand the importance of the 5 factors, in this case, connecting, when they don't see in their world anything wrong? We go to the same gym, just at different times.
How do you get them to understand the 5 factors when they don't think anything's wrong? You don't. You don't. And this is a great question, and I have a lot of empathy because this is a tough place to be in, where you want to give so much of yourself. You want the connection. You want more out of your life and your relationships and the connection, and the other person's complacent. I believe that in order to have that, you have to give that. So if you want greater connection, you need to give greater connection. Now, I know Peter's going like, I do that. You're not listening. I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to create the time. I'm trying to do what Cole does and go on the walks and the coffee, and I want to do date night. Here's what I'm saying with connection. It's not about the walks. It's not about the shared coffee. And it's definitely not about date night. I think that this date night thing is a total hoax. I see it. I see couples out on date night that aren't talking to each other. It's not about the date night. It's about the way you look at her when she talks. It's about the way you respond to her when she walks in the room. We talked about this recently. When she walks in the room, what are you feeling? Because that feeling that you're giving off, that's the connection. And when she walks in the room, what do you feel? When she's telling a story to your friends, are you supporting her with your attention, and you're her biggest fan, and you think that she's the funniest or the most engaging person or the life of the party, and you're so happy to be there with her? That's connection. Connection is not, okay, so I made reservations for 2 on Tuesday night at 8:00 at Buttercup. Cool? Okay. And we go there. It's like, what are you going to have? I'm going to have the fish tacos. What are you going to? That's not connection. And connection cannot be scripted, and it cannot be coached, especially to the other person, saying, I want you to connect with me. That's not how it works. To get it, you got to give it.
Thank you very much. If you would like to get a question into the queue, find me on Instagram at PS Cummings. Drop me a DM. I'll get it into our list and onto a future episode. We have a workout coming up soon. Another listener question about overscheduling our kids. But first, quick word of thanks from a sponsor this week, Shopify. Head to shopify.com/excellence for a $1 per month trial and start building your online empire. If you're a business owner, you know how important it is to have the right tools to succeed. That's why I'm excited to tell you about Shopify, the commerce platform that's revolutionizing businesses worldwide. Ben, my first experience with Shopify was Project Elevation a million years ago when we did that.
Ooh. People have been listening to us for 7 years. Know what that is. Everyone else
shout out if you know what that is. But that was my first. That was we did posters and ebooks and a handful of other things. And so I was like, I'm going to figure out the Shopify thing, because I had up until then not had an excuse to mess with it. And while Project Elevation went away, I'm happy to see that Shopify certainly did not. Shopify is the internet's best converting checkout to help to turn folks from browsers to buyers. Plus, with Shopify's award-winning help, you'll get the support you need to succeed every step of the way. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US, and Shopify is truly a global force powering Allbirds, Rothy's, and Noble. I actually double checked. I went into Noble. I was like, are they still using Shopify? And they are. And millions, obviously, of other entrepreneurs of every size across 170 countries. Sign up for that $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/excellence, all lowercase, to help take your business to the next level today. Shopify.com/excellence. Element. Are you looking for a tasty way to replenish your electrolytes? Look no further than Element. Go to drinkelement.com/excellence to learn more about the electrolyte drink that has everything you need and nothing you do not. With a science-backed electrolyte ratio of 1,000 milligrams sodium, 200 milligrams potassium, and 60 milligrams magnesium, Element can help prevent and eliminate headaches, muscle cramps, fatigue, sleeplessness, and other common symptoms of electrolyte deficiency. And with none of the junk, no sugar, no coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, no BS, you can feel good about what you are putting in your body. Right now, Element is offering a free sample pack with any purchase, 8 single serving packs for free with any Element order. This is a great way to try all 8 flavors or share Element with a salty friend. And Element offers no questions asked refunds. So if you don't like it, you have nothing to lose. Again, drinkelement.com/excellence to get that free sample pack, drinklmnt.com/excellence. All right. Our workout today is from a question from Jeff. He says, I've tried to apply the lessons around mindset and quote unquote get to, especially as it relates to my kids who are aged 14 and 10. I worry we are overscheduling them. With the afternoons for homework, dinner, and an activity, soccer, lacrosse, basketball, or baseball, there is always something. Am I helping my kids chase excellence and teaching them executive function, or am I at risk of burning them out? They both love their activities and are not couch potatoes. They'd rather have their sneakers on versus being on their phones and playing video games. I'd hate to be the parent that spends $100,000 on youth sports, but if they learn how to balance their time, make friends, and be great teammates, then perhaps it's money well spent. What are your thoughts on kids and their busy schedules?
Oh man, it's so funny that this question came up. I had this conversation last night. We have someone in town that's Jameson. You know Jameson?
Shout out Jameson.
Shout out to Jameson. And Jameson's in town. He's staying with us. And he traveled last night. We did the 45-minute trek to practice, to drop off the kids at practice. And I was talking with him, and Bodie, my 11-year-old, is playing soccer 7 days a week right now. So he's on 2 teams. He practices 3 nights a week from one team, 2 nights a week. Strangely enough, they fall on the exact opposite nights, which is amazing. And he has games with one team on Saturday, games on the other team on Sunday. A lot of times those are multiple games each day. And then our daughter is playing club lacrosse, and club lacrosse is sometimes practices and games are in different states. So I get him. Jeff, the struggle is real. And if it is wrong, I am falling into the trap just like everybody else. And what's really funny is if I had this sounds so weird, but if I had my choice, they wouldn't do it. Huh?
Let's talk about
that. Am I just trying to keep up with the Joneses, meaning like allowing Bodie the opportunity to keep up with the Joneses? Because here's the way I backpedal into this is I want him to have the opportunity. He doesn't need to, but I want him to have the opportunity to play sports in high school. The way sports are set up right now is you should see how good these kids are. It's insane. And these are the kids that he's going to go up against in high school. So if he doesn't do this now, and I'm falling for the trap, if he doesn't do this now, when he goes out to try out for soccer in high school, he's not going to make the team. So in order to do this, in order to allow him that opportunity, we need to kind of do this, because you also see like what happens year over year with the development of these kids. It works. Like they get good. They get really good. And if you decide like, no, I'm just going to play, we're going to practice once a week and we're going to play 1 game on Saturdays. Like, well, there goes that opportunity for the high school athletic career. Man, like during COVID, when all this was gone, that was one of the huge upsides. The other thing we talked about is when we're on Cape Cod during the summers, our kids don't do this. This is where we're trying to find some balance. Our kids don't do it during the summer. They don't do it during the winter because we ski in the winter and we go to the Cape on the summer. But the shoulder seasons, fall and spring, they're really engrossed in this thing. Is during the summer, this magical place that we live, the kids can leave the house at 8:30 in the morning, and we might not see them until 8 o'clock at night. And someone's going to feed them lunch, someone's going to feed them dinner, and they don't have plans when they leave the house. They're just like, see you later. They hop on their bikes and they go and find kids. It's like the way I remember growing up, because we weren't overscheduled. I played Little League, but it was practice maybe 1 or 2 nights a week, and you played one game maybe a week. And that was it. And there was nothing else. So this thing and it's like, why is this so different down there than it is everywhere else up here? I was talking to some people and they're like, yeah, if my kid took off on their bike through the neighborhood, we live in a neighborhood that's 3 cul-de-sacs connected together with families. There's no cars and they're just chock full of kids. He goes, I never see a kid in the street. I never see kids. They're not there. So on the Cape, our kids can go out and just find kids and be kids in an unstructured environment. They're swimming, they're playing on the beach, they're kayaking, they're riding their bikes, they're going to the playground, they're going to the shop and buying some food and some snacks, and they're doing this awesome, amazing thing. They do sailing lessons. There is a little bit of structure, but they get there on their own, which is awesome. But in a normal environment, so when our kids, like even if there's so many kids around, they're not there because they go to, just as Jeff was saying, they go to school. Then in our kids, they would do like what they call after school, where there's just like an extra period essentially. That's a study hall that kids can get their work done before they go home, take a lace bus, or go to a sporting event. But then our kids go from that to CrossFit Kids, from CrossFit Kids to soccer practice. Soccer practice, they're getting home at 8:15 to 8:30 p.m. What the crap? Like it's awesome that they do CrossFit Kids at our gym, so I get to see them. And Heather's their coach, so it's not like we don't see them all day. But maybe in the previous question it was like, what are some of the things that derail your good habits? This is one. We used to have family dinner all the time. Like when our kids were younger, we had family dinner 4 nights a week. And that's gone. We don't have that anymore. And I can't think of it's anything other than it's keeping up with the Joneses. Like I feel like I need to do this to keep up with all the other kids that are getting so much better. As somebody that's on the outside, not in it yet, what's your take on this?
Yeah, it's really interesting because you're right. My kids are 6 and 3, so we're not.
Because when I wasn't there, I was going, we're not doing that. Right. I can remember having the conversation with Heather. I watched them. I was like, watching them do it, I was like, we're not doing that. Now, I am proud that like we don't do it during the Cape. Like there's families down there that are driving their kids hour and a half all the time. So at least we have that kind of carved out space, but we're falling for it otherwise.
Yeah. It's interesting to me because I think there's also an element, and I think that you and Heather have a lot more, just because of your lives and the fact that you run your own business and all that. I think you guys have a lot more control and agency over your schedule. I know you do, than if both of you were working whatever jobs, right? That's just where you've got like, I got to be in the office. I think it becomes a lot more complicated and harder if that's the case. And the fact that you guys do have some flexibility might shelter you from some of, but that's the first thing I think about is the sacrifice for Jeff of like, what does his life look like when his kids are 10 hours a week somewhere else doing some sporting event or something else? Because the truth of the matter is while he's couching this in like, I'm doing this for my kids, I think this is good for them, I hope it is. What is it doing to Jeff? What is it doing to Jeff's relationship? What is it doing to his health? And I think it's really easy as parents to say like everything for the kids. And while there's a degree to that is true, not at the detriment of one's own health, one's own agency, one's own ability to take a walk in the middle of the day or go out to dinner or any of the other things. So to me, that's partly what I think about is, okay, fine. That's part of the equation. What you're saying, which I can't argue with, like I totally get where you're coming from and why it is in fact an easy decision to make, easy to say like, cool, let's do the two soccer teams. Like, that's just the way we do it. Okay, fine. I get that. But I think about, given that I'm not inside of it, I think about, okay, I don't want my kid to make sacrifices for their future. But does that come am I willing to make sacrifices for myself, for my own future? And I don't know, again, sitting here now, it's easy for me to say, as it was for you, let's call it 5, 6, 7 years ago. The answer is no. Not that I don't want them to do anything, but I want them to do everything such that I become an Uber driver for my kids. And I think that when we get to a certain age, and maybe that happens, when we start to feel like, I'm not where I want to be. I'm not as healthy as I want to be. I don't care about my work. I'd really rather be doing this. My relationship is fractured. I never see my friends. But then never questioning, well, where is my time going? Where is my energy going? Where is my attention going? And if it's always going to one place that, to your point, is in many, many ways voluntary, then I think it's incumbent on us, if we find ourselves in that position, to say, is this worth the sacrifice I'm making, in the hopes that little Johnny is getting everything I hope he gets out of this, and he becomes XYZ 10 years down the road? And is it worth $100,000? Is it worth me being in the car for 2 hours every single night? Like, is it actually worth it?
What's interesting about the car thing, though? So your kids are going to spend 2 hours away from you doing something else anyway, right? They're either going to be, and this is what it's hard to, when your kids are 5 and 6, it's hard to recognize this.
But time is important.
But when the kids are 14, there's going to be a 2 hour block in the afternoon that they're not going to be with you. Well, if that's soccer practice, that's really, as he said, that's a great way they're moving, they have their sneakers on, they're with a team, they're learning good morals, they're learning communication, they're learning goal setting, they're learning how to overcome adversity. And what's interesting, if you want to be the person, you get the car ride with them. And that's actually a lot of, so this thing about like them going and what's weird, which actually is, you might actually be spending more time with your kids if they do all these activities. Because if they don't, then they're not always going to be with you. And I know it's as when you have a 5-year-old, you're like, yes, they are.
Yep.
But it is, it's an opportunity to, like, those car rides are, Heather used to always, our kids went to a school that was a couple towns over, and it was a 25-minute drive there and back. And she would always clamor to be able to drive the kids to and from school. And she would cherish those drives, because as the kids get older, the time you spend with them gets farther and farther between. But I get your point of like, yeah, what is it? That's the right answer. That's the right question, though, is like, what are we sacrificing? If this is the question, should we be doing this or something else? The alternative becomes, what's the something else? Then it becomes are we doing this with the right perspective and hindsight in the present moment? And are we making these decisions based off of our values and what we want in the totality of our lives, and, creating the frameworks to make the right decisions to chase what truly matters? And I think that there's not a right answer. I really believe that there's not. It's just a matter of, with enough hindsight, we'll probably get there. When we do get extra busy, Heather and I are like, all right, time to go live off the grid in Montana. It's like, because it gets crazy with the drive. We have a lot of agency and a lot of control of our schedule, but it's still like a big. Last night we must have had, but he's on this team with this other group of kids. We must have had, it was practice number 1, so maybe 27 text messages to figure out the driving thing for the week. And it's like, just that alone is you're on your screen trying to figure out the logistics of travel, and figure out the logistics of which uniform is it and all these other things. But again, if we're not doing that, what are we doing? It's one of those things that we can always say, like, well, if we weren't doing this, we would be, gardening in the backyard together. We would be taking bike rides together. We would ... And if that's the case, cool. But what we do is we romanticize things a lot. And we've talked about this a lot in other aspects, where when the dishwasher came along, and washing machines and clothes dryers came along, there was actually what they thought was going to be a crisis of what do people do with all this extra spare time? Because people aren't going to have to do their dishes anymore. They're not going to do their laundry anymore. So they're going to have these extra hours every day of free time. Well, that's not what happens. Is the alternative just gets filled up with the other busyness. So if we're saying like our kids aren't going to be busy playing sports, is it that they're not going to be busy? Or is it that they're going to be doing something else? And I don't want them to pull away from this just to live a life of, again, it's not going to be that they're going to go cruising through the streets on their bike and find their friends because they're not there. Their friends are doing this thing. And it's the reality of the world right now. You can pretend like my kid's not going to have a cell phone. But the reality of the world is that when your kid is 15, he's probably going to have a cell phone. So how are we going to navigate it with the cell phone? And that's where we are right now is we were like, nope. And by the way, our kids were like, we're not going to have cell phones. Well, he's 11 and he has an Apple Watch, which is pretty damn close.
Right. Yeah, I think, again, it's really easy for me to sit here and have opinions on this.
Your opinions are valuable because it's on the outside.
Yeah.
It's like,
but
you haven't been soiled yet. You haven't been tainted.
So maybe we can wrap it up on this. The one thing I was thinking about with this question is I think that we undervalue slack and space and solitude. I think we don't appreciate that those are not negatives. Those are not things that happen when we don't fill our time with something else, but that those are things that are additive, just like the soccer team's additive, just like the car rides are additive. And I think about this not only for kids, but I think that the parents have to appreciate this and understand this and model this and prioritize this as well, is we're really bad at solitude. We're really bad at having empty space in our calendar. We're really bad at unoptimizing or living in a way that's unoptimized. And so therefore we bring our kids into that environment, and then they grow up without ever feeling bored, without ever being empty, having an empty day ahead of them, without ever having to figure out themselves, well, what am I going to do for the next 2 to 3 hours? Because because I'm not being micromanaged. And we do that to ourselves. We micromanage our own schedules. And then of course our kids get micromanaged as well because we're uncomfortable with solitude. We're uncomfortable with empty space. We're uncomfortable with silence. And so what I think about is just generally, like, where did this come from? I think to your point, like there is a flywheel of, well, if I want my kid to play soccer, he's got to keep up with that kid, which means he's got to do 2 sports, which means, and then like you're in that loop. And I totally understand that. But there's a similar loop of, well, I can't stand being by myself. So therefore my kid can't stand being by himself. And then, well, we have got to fill his schedule with something. And then our schedule is filled with something. So that's good. Cause then I don't have to think about not doing something. But like we have this loop of we're constantly we're constantly pulling ourselves away from the thoughts in our own head. And I think that is a massive detriment. And I think we're doing massive damage to ourselves. Cal Newport calls it a solitude, what does he call it? Solitude deprivation or something like that. And it's true. We fill our attention, we fill our time with little screens or big screens. We watch Netflix at night instead of sitting down and reading a book or having a thought. We fill our kids' schedule with any number of things so that they don't ever have to figure out what to do with themselves. But the truth is, especially for kids, but for us as well, there is so much value in unstructured time. There's so much value in playing and figuring things out and exploring. And we've wiped all of that out from our schedules completely. Your schedule, my schedule. I don't have nearly enough empty exploring time. I'm not good at it. I don't know how to do it. I'm working on it. And my kids even struggle with it. They're 6 and 3. Sometimes they come up to me like, I'm bored. I'm like, Jiminy Christmas. Like, we've got a house full of stuff and go outside.
Jiminy Christmas?
Jiminy Christmas. I actually say that out loud. Yes.
97 years old and still living in the 50s?
But it's so hard, but it's so important. Jiminy Christmas. So that's my little soapbox. And also, I will say, like, I struggle with it as much as anybody. And I totally get the like, cool, we're doing sports now. Like, I get it. I don't know. I don't have the answer, but to me, it comes back to recognizing the value of emptiness, and that's not a bad thing, that can be an amazing thing.
Yeah. And I'm going to pull Bodie off both his teams.
Blame me for it.
Listen, you just have to, Bodie, you got to listen to this episode with Patrick. And
next time I see him, I'm going to throw something
you'll
at me.
understand.
All right, we'll wrap it up there. Jeff, is that your name? Yeah, Jeff. Hopefully that was helpful. Clearly this is not an easy answer. And so I appreciate, Ben, you expressing your own kind of uncertainty about it. And clearly something I've got coming. So something I'll keep thinking about. We're going to be back with a new shout out and a cool down. We'll do a new Hopper Talk. But first, a quick word from one of our sponsors this week, Momentous. Designed by the world's best experts, used by the world's best teams and athletes, and made for all of us, Momentous is a high-performance supplement and sports nutrition company whose mission is to provide consumers with the highest quality and innovative products possible, combined with the knowledge and insights of why and how to use them. Visit livemomentous.com and use the code EXCELLENCE to get 20% off your first order. Speaking of that first order, check out their Sleep Pack, which features a 30-day supply of easy-to-use tear-away packs featuring 3 natural ingredients that prime you for a good night's rest. Each pack comes with a full serving of magnesium, L-threonate, apigenin, and L-theanine. These ingredients provide unique effects that will help you fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and wake up refreshed. This actually literally reminds me that I have to order some protein powder and creatine from Live Momentous. And I'm going to get 20% off my first order. I'm excited about that. Again, livemomentous.com. Use that code EXCELLENCE. Get 20% off your first order. Our shout out this week. Our shout out is just when we take a moment to read a note from a listener, or maybe a YouTube comment, or a comment in some form or fashion. This one's from Katie. She says, I recently listened to an episode where y'all, I like when people say y'all, because then that gives me an excuse to say y'all, because I'm not allowed to say y'all at all. So Katie said, Katie's giving me permission.
Can't say y'all at all. That's good.
I recently listened to an episode where y'all talked about no steps backward in regards to injury and recovery. I teach Algebra 1 online and have a lot of one-on-one conversations with parents about the kids' progress. One student is going through a hard time and is trying new medications. Mom is overwhelmed and knows that school is important, but her daughter's health is also important. So we were discussing what would be the best in the interest of the student in regards to juggling therapy, medications, and education. I suggested that they not try everything all at once, because that could lead to a huge backslide with the student. I talked to her about the no steps back mentality and to go slowly and to slowly add in more work or stressors when she shows that she is mentally ready for it. So thank you for what you do. This could be life changing for this struggling teenager.
Cool. Take it.
All right, cool down. We'll do a Hopper Talk, which is just when I take a random question off of the internet and we talk about it for 5 minutes in the hopes that we come up with something interesting or funny at least. So our Hopper Talk this week is this question: what do you want written on your gravestone? Other than your name, I guess.
You want to go first? Yeah.
All right. So I was thinking about this morning. I was trying to think of something mildly clever or something, and then I was cleaning up the dishes, and I realized the only thing valuable that you could put on a gravestone would have nothing to do with you, because you're dead and it doesn't matter. The only thing valuable that you could put on your gravestone would be if it was useful and valuable to the person reading it. And so I don't have the exact thing that I would put on there, but it would be something like, one day there will be no more some days. Something like that. Again, that's too clever. Basically what I would be saying is, like, you're going to be here.
Your biggest critique of yourself is I'm too clever.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. It's true though. Like, we talk about, like,
I know
wording all the time. And it's like, dude, you're a poet. Chill out.
But to summarize, it would be something like, one day this will be you. Do something about it. Live today. Go do that thing. Because I think that that's the only thing that can be of help to anybody at that point. If you're reading somebody's gravestone, it can only be a reminder that you don't got that much time left.
So I thought of this as like a different way, which is like, it's the thing, I'm saying this is what I want on my gravestone. So it's the thing that's going to direct the rest of my life going forward, knowing that this is going to be on my gravestone.
Yep.
That's the way I thought of it, which is, and to me, first off, I don't want a gravestone. I want to be burned and spread in the ocean.
Thrown to the sea, right?
Yep. Exactly. Heather and I both together.
You chose the sea over the mountains.
Yes, we did. It's also where we got married. Yeah, same spot we got married.
For sure. Yep.
Which is where I spent every day of every summer growing up.
Yep.
So it's a meaningful place. So it would be something along the lines of he lived life and loved us the most. Like that. Like it's just something, I just want to be somebody that really lived life. That's what this fulfillment thing is, like living life to the fullest, while not in a selfish way, like just in a way that like he loved us so much. And if that's because I think of it in terms of like, I don't get to choose this. Like I die in a car crash tomorrow. What are they going to put on it for me? And if they put that on there, that would mean that I've done the right things along the way.
Yeah. That's like the one sentence deathbed filter that we talk about all the time, right? Yeah. Like, cool. Pare it down to one sentence. Yep. And if you can do that, then you've got a pretty solid North Star.
Like the most isn't right because that's comparative and it means that somebody else didn't do it as much, but like you get it. Like that's the, so much life, so much love, like whatever, too poetic. And I don't actually want that, but something like
Heather,
like that. Listen. Yeah. Heather, get with Patrick. The two of you guys are phenomenal writers. You guys will figure this thing out.
On it. We'll happily do so. Cool. Thank you, my man. That was fun. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. If you'd like to get a question into a future episode, find me on Instagram, PS Cummings. Drop me a DM. I will add it to our list. I will get it into a future episode. I promise, because Ben and I will be recording these episodes until we are both dead. So we have plenty of time and we need lots more questions. So thank you in advance for sending it. Thanks for your ratings and your reviews. Thank you, especially when you share the show with friends. That helps us continue to grow the show, and we appreciate it. Ben and I will be back next week for another episode of Chasing Excellence.